Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom. How's it going?
Let's hurry up. We don't know how long the live stream is going to stay up. We don't want to waste any time.
That's true.
There's plenty to talk about.
There is plenty. Yeah, let's talk about that. This is a Wednesday night post-practice interview session. Go ahead and throw your questions in. We'll talk to Ryan Day, talk to Brian Hartline, Parker Fleming, Barry Eliano, Kyle McCord, Steel Chambers, Matt Jones. Who else?
Kate Stover, I believe I
Kate
saw
Stover.
out there.
And I think that may have been, I did not get Josh Simmons. We were rumored to maybe get Carnell Tate. I don't believe he came out. Sonny Styles was the last player. So a slew of Buckeyes. Talking to Ryan Day. Nothing earth-shattering on his Wednesday lightning round. Were you there for him? Was there anything of note there? That
I was not. I was over there for about 3 questions.
Yeah,
and then Brian Hartline came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was asked if the running game right now is different than he anticipated at the start of the season, and no, it's not that much different. The good news is they found what is working, so that's why you kind of just lean into that more. And maybe it's a little bit different than what you're doing last year, but you found something that works, so you can go with it. And I expect that to continue against Minnesota. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, they have definitely changed what they're doing in the run game over the course of the season. At the beginning of the year, how many times did you see stretch into the boundary? You really haven't seen that much in recent weeks. It has been, you can hear, the reason I sound smart talking about this is because I just talked to Ross Fulton about this. You can find that on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed, and of course youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. If you want to watch that video with all the clips of the game that Ross is talking about, you can find that on the Huddle board, presented by Jeffrey Steakhouse at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Ross talked this week about the fact that not only they're running a lot of counter, and counter OH was the thing that they were doing, which is the offside tight end, and then H is the other tight end. But you'll hear counter GT, and that's like a guard tackle. They have been running that quite a bit, and at the beginning of last week's game, they ran different variations of that, where they ran that, and then they ran a play action pass off of that, and then the action on the Marvin Harrison reverse started that way. If you watch G. Scott on that play, G. Scott starts going one way, like he's going to go pick up the backside, and then just like flips and goes the other way, and then picks up a block in front of Marvin Harrison. So, it's kind of, you're at the point of the season where you're doing stuff off of the stuff that you've already shown. And, let's be honest, there's probably is the next level of that potentially coming against Minnesota, and then probably 2 or 3 more levels after that against Michigan in the fall.
Yeah, I think with the 21 personnel, the 2 back sets, I'm not sure if you guys talked about that, if that's the counting that he was talking about. But even then, you see if you watch that, Xavier Johnson, before he gets the ball, he takes one step, he leans towards one direction and goes the other. And Brian Hartline was talking about that formation, and he said they've had that for a while. And they've used it a little bit. They're using a lot more now, but they have a lot more stuff that they can do off of that. And it's the first time they really started to use it a few weeks back, and felt like that is going to be something that we see different things come out of from Michigan. Like, I was a little bit surprised they ran the wheel route already.
Yeah.
With Xavier Johnson as the blocker for Chip Trayanum, but then he runs a wheel route, and he was open down the sideline. I thought maybe that would be something they would say on a play action, but if they've got more than that, which I think is good news for Ohio State, because I do expect that to continue. And as Brian said, there's more things they can do off of it. Really, we've only seen a couple of things to this point, but they've been effective. And when the little bit you've seen has been effective, the stuff you haven't seen, you would expect to hit as well.
Well, and everything that you show now, as long as you have more stuff to come later, everything you show now is, okay, Michigan has to be sitting there, and they've got to look at this and go, okay, we got to do this. And, hey, you got to watch for this off of that. And you got to watch for this off of that. And that, number one, keeps you from getting a bunch of guys in pursuit, because everyone's got to sort of play it straight and, respect the fact that, hey, just because it looks like Xavier Johnson's going to block doesn't necessarily mean that Xavier Johnson's going to block. You got to have a guy kind of stay with him, which, gets your running back or receivers in more one-on-one kind of situations. You also choose up a bunch of time, a bunch of prep time. And it also, if you can get guys out there thinking, that slows them down a little bit. That's, as an offense, that's what you want.
Yeah, and in terms of the thinking, talking to Kyle McCord about something that Ryan Day continues to say regarding Kyle is finding the speed of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, what is the difference between not quite having it and then finding it? He said, when you're playing at the speed of the game, you can anticipate. So it's almost like you're ahead of the game as opposed to trying to play catch up. When you found the speed, you're no longer playing catch up. You can anticipate. You have more confidence because you know what you're seeing and things are happening as expected. When you are behind a moment or two, then now you're questioning everything. The confidence isn't there. But obviously, he's playing with a ton of confidence right now. Talked about how the touchdown throw to Cade Stover was probably his favorite touchdown of the day. That is a throw that requires confidence and work, obviously. But to throw it and the amount of work those two have put into that play, I think Cade Stover may have been over there talking about it. He was talking to somebody earlier tonight. But they've done that for a while now, and it's not necessarily a throw that Cal would have been as confident to throw at the start of the season.
Well, it was not exactly the same throw because he kind of had to go back hip on Stover, but very similar throw in terms of distance, very similar throw in terms of spot to the throw down to Emeka Egbuka down to the one that set up the winning touchdown at Notre Dame. So pretty reminiscent of that, different play, but again, on that one, you watch and great throw. Cade Stover makes a great catch. You know who got the safety out of there on that play?
Yeah, yes. Was that Marvin?
It was a wide receiver who wears number 1 and number 8.
Yes.
Who has drawn some notice from both Ohio State fans, Heisman voters, and opposing defensive coordinators this year. It was Marvin Harrison Jr. And he didn't. That was not like a pump fake to Marvin. It was just he's running down the sideline, and the safety's already kind of way over to that side, and then takes like 2 steps that way, and that's it. You get yourself just a little bit out of the play, and then there's an opening. The court recognized it. The court put it in one spot where Stover could catch it, and the defensive back couldn't, and boom, there's a touchdown.
The ability to have Marvin Harrison when you're a quarterback, to rely on him, but also the amount of gravity he creates with the defense allows you to kind of understand the orbital path of the secondary in terms of a safety that is back there. They're going to drift towards Marvin, which gives you a larger window away from him when you want to go that way. But when he's as good as he is, you don't necessarily need to go away from that as maybe you would think you would when you have that opportunity. But also, I do expect them to continue to use that gravity for their benefit, as they did with the Cade Stover. And I expect that to continue elsewhere, running down sidelines, wheel routes, just getting safeties, vacating the area, especially when they put him in the slot and you're going to have a safety over top of him. You can drag that safety essentially wherever you want.
Yeah, and how often do you see that where, the one guy, the sail concept, you see the sail concept all the time where, Marvin Harrison goes up and, in or, and then Cade Stover comes underneath, out, and there's no one there because Marvin Harrison has drawn both the corner and the safety, and everyone's kind of going, hey, look at that guy. Because here's the thing, if you don't cover him, if you're the safety and you don't go, hey, look at that guy and start chasing him, then you're the moron who let Marvin Harrison get deep in. Come on, everyone knows he's the guy. He's the guy. Can't let that guy beat you. And I'm sure that's not just safeties making that decision on a whim. I'm sure that's what they're being coached to do. But yeah, it opens up so many other things. We talked earlier in the week that it's not only Marvin Harrison taking 1.5 to 2 guys with him on every play. It's that he can have those 1.5 to 2 guys on him and still sometimes make a play. So it's not just he's a decoy who's pulling guys out of it. He's not just pulling people out of there with the Woods gravitational pull. It's he also can sometimes make a play even when there is a guy and a half or 2 guys on him.
He's like a decoy, but he's also a live duck.
Yeah.
I don't know does he warn the other ducks or does he attack shooters? The duck hunters, he grabs them by the head, dunks them in the water and smolds them there.
That dog at the bottom of the screen
has
a lot of defensive backs this year.
Yeah. Talking to Brian Hartline about his 2 senior wide receivers, Julian Fleming, Xavier Johnson. This is senior day on Saturday. And I asked him, do you expect Julian to walk? He said, anybody who is able to walk should walk. And, if somebody comes back fine, he's like, I don't know if anybody's ever walked twice. And I didn't want to tell him that Josh Proctor will be walking twice.
Yeah.
But just ask him about those 2 guys and the different paths they took to their senior day. It's like they've very different. But the funny thing is they're very similar players in terms of the work, what they do on the field, how they go about their work, the thanklessness that they have, just the trust that he has in them to do their different roles. Julian Fleming will clean out a safety, will vacate an area, as they did with like Jameson Williams back in the day. But also he's the best perimeter blocker they have. Xavier Johnson, they have him doing all different kinds of things. So you have one guy who's a sixth-year guy, Xavier Johnson, walk on. You have the other guy, Julian Fleming, a five-star number one recruit in the nation for ESPN's rankings, number one wide receiver recruit in the 2020 class per I think everybody's rankings. And I think Julian is heading for, I think he maybe has like 70 career catches, 60 or 70 career catches. Not what you would expect from a number one recruit, but just I was rewatching the game, and you see the biggest smile on his face for whenever anything good is happening, and that's where I think the similarity really is. It's the demeanor, the attitude between those two guys, because one guy could go, both guys could go somewhere else and play. Xavier Johnson could have gone somewhere years ago and gotten a scholarship, except he did get the scholarship here years ago. Julian Fleming could have gone somewhere to be the number one guy, but they have both stayed here and put in a ton of work, and now they are heading for senior day.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned Fleming being so excited for everyone else. If you search in quotes the phrase Jameson Williams is absolutely delighted for his teammates, you will find a bunch of tweets from me in like 2019 or so with Jameson Williams looking like he is about to explode with joy as other people are scoring touchdowns. And, he's someone who was a lot like Julian Fleming in terms of stats. And, every time he was at Ohio State, it was like, well, what's wrong with Jameson Williams? Why does he have 11 catches this year or whatever it was? And, he would make the big play sometimes, but he was always out there. I was like, well, this guy's not making any plays. Why do they keep him out there? Well, he's doing all the little stuff. And then when he went to Alabama and they didn't have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson to also catch the ball, he was the main dude. And then all of a sudden he got drafted right in the middle of the order of Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So, the skill is there. All the little stuff is there. All the stuff that coaches just love. Perimeter blocking stuff. Like everyone looks at wide receivers and goes, "Well, this guy's a bum. He doesn't catch. He only got 2 passes last week." If you're the guy who does all the little stuff, and you're the guy who's the superior, blocker on the edge, that's the kind of stuff coaches love. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps you on the field. And he does the little stuff. Xavier Johnson has just been, Xavier Johnson got here in 2018. Do you know how long ago 2018 was? Holy smokes. Matt Jones was talking about 2000, getting here in 2018. It was like, oh, that was ages ago. And he's been here through all this stuff and took forever to get on the field. Matt Jones did. He was another guy who was a number one center in his class. Julian Fleming, number one receiver in his class, took a while to get on the field. Xavier Johnson comes here as a walk-on. Took a while to get on the field. And Josh Proctor, too. Josh Proctor was somebody who we were talking about in 2018 is like, oh, man, this is the next big thing. And it took only until 2023 for him to really stick. Everyone has had kind of these different paths, but, when the talent is in there, if you stick with it long enough and you follow that, everyone has had different challenges. Julian Fleming has had health issues. Matt Jones was just stuck behind people for quite a while, and then it finally got on the field and has been very solid since then. Xavier Johnson came as a walk-on and almost quit at one point and then stuck with it. And, Josh Proctor, Perry Eliano talked about Josh Proctor, that it's never been a physical thing. It's been a mental thing with him. It's just been focus and
put the team in bad spots, but also mentioned that they've got a lot of young guys out there.
They do have a lot of young guys out there. That's not really new for special teams at Ohio State.
I mean, you're right.
I mean, that has sort of been the proving ground for, I remember Terry McLaurin as a young guy being the young guy who is the gunner on the punt team, and that's how you sort of earn your stripes and you earn your way to playing on offenses. You play on, and that's just that is where all of the incredibly talented athletes who aren't quite ready to play on offense or defense. That's not really new. You'll have the kickoff team, the kickoff coverage team is this fascinating mix of like 5-star wide receivers like Brandon Ennis and 5-star linebackers like CJ Hicks earlier in the year, and also walk-on wide receiver David Adolph, Caden Curry as a high 4-star defensive end. It's just kind of this mishmash of a bunch of different dudes and a bunch of different guys from a bunch of different backgrounds, but in terms of like recruiting profiles and that kind of stuff. But it's not Marvin Harrison out there covering kicks. That's not how it works. That's you maybe do that as a freshman, and then so I don't know that while they're young is something that really I find particularly persuasive in terms of reason for issues.
Well, and he did say mistakes are on him for if any mistakes happen, obviously they're on him for not getting the guys prepared. But he also mentioned that some of these things are being cherry picked, but that is a valid way to tell. That is a valid way to point some things out because it's being presented. And this is not what he's saying, but it's being presented by like the only thing that happens on special teams is bad, and that's not true. But there are times each game where you can count on something glaring happening, and he was asked if we thought about the fact that this is a championship caliber team, a team looking to win a championship, and a special teams mistake could cost the team that sort of thing. And said he was quiet for a few seconds and said he hadn't really thought about that like that, because I think for a coach, any mistake can cost a game. That is kind of your thought process, but he did say that you can't have mistakes that can cost a game happen. But at some point, one of these things, and Tom, have we seen it happen before?
I can think of one late November last year that was a fairly consequential one. I can think of one in Atlanta, Georgia on New Year's Eve last year that was a fair, didn't end, got negated by a timeout, but you're only allowed to have 11 players on the field. You don't want to pull a Notre Dame, but you don't want to overcompensate and pull a Notre Dame +2. So, yeah, there have been a bunch of mistakes, and yeah, you can say they're being cherry picked, but I mean, what is the signature fantastic play for the Ohio State special teams this year?
Boy, that's a good question. Probably a punt down inside the 3-yard line, and that's not necessarily playing. That's really good punting.
Yeah, that's having an Australian.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should do it.
I mean, there has not been a huge game-breaking kick return. There has not been a huge game-breaking punt return. There has not been a turnover forced punt or kick coverage, pop balls, they have a lot of field goals that I can remember. They have they've made field goals, but they've missed a couple of field goals too. But there hasn't been a wow, that was a 58-yard or hey, they won the game or anything like that. It feels like the Ohio State special teams are, depending on which advanced stat system you want to look at. I think SP Plus has it 30th in the country. I think FEI has it maybe like 58th or something like that. Last time I looked, it's like really unremarkable. And if you have a dedicated special teams coach and you have this this kind of athletes, where we're talking about all these 5-star athletes and that kind of stuff. If you have all of those guys and you have a dedicated special teams coach, it feels like you should have a wow moment. Like Zachariah Branch, you watch Zachariah Branch return kicks for USC, and it's like, holy crap, this guy's incredible. When was the last holy crap, this is incredible in a positive way for Ohio State special teams? I will allow you to go back multiple seasons.
Emeka Egbuka as a kick returner as a true freshman was probably the last time. He led the Big Ten in kickoff return yards at like 29 at the return. Had some long ones, no scores, obviously, but that's probably it. And then you go back to Paris Campbell in like 2016 and 17-ish before they took him off of that spot because of concussions. But really, I mean, I'm not going to go back to Ted Ginn because that's unfair to anybody.
Right.
But maybe Zachariah Branch is unfair to anybody. But the Ohio State special teams, as a whole, is basically a non-playable character. It's just walking around in the background of your open platform video game.
And the dialogue keeps looping, and the dialogue keeps saying it was a miscommunication.
Yeah. We'll get that fixed, and then it won't happen again. Sonny Styles was out there talking about the same thing that he's talked about the past couple of weeks. He's comfortable playing at the Bandit. It's kind of what he came to Ohio State to do. He likes being closer to the line of scrimmage because it does allow him to get to more run fits, plays more snaps. You might find this surprising, Tom. He gets excited when Jim Knowles calls a blitz for him.
That actually is not all that surprising. He seems like the kind of person that enjoys putting his face mask on someone's chest, and that seems like a great opportunity for him to do that. He's someone who, I think, broadly speaking, you're probably better off the closer he's playing to the line of scrimmage. Not that he can't play the deep safety, and Perry Eliano talked about the fact that he can kind of do whatever they need him to do, where if you want to bring Josh Proctor up in the box, like they trust him to do that. You can do that, but you're probably better off with him being a little closer to the line of scrimmage because he's more of a linebacker / safety than he is a true safety, deep safety kind of thing. But they've done. You go back to like Pete Warner. They did that with Pete Warner, where they would rotate it, and it's just like, why is Pete Warner playing deep safety? It's like you can't do that a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Styles probably a better deep safety than Pete Warner, but you can kind of get away with that a little bit, and they can do it more with Styles than they could with Warner. But just that flexibility. Jim Knowles called him a Swiss Army knife in the spring, and that's what he is. He can do a little bit of everything.
I saw a tweet on Wednesday from PFF saying that I think it was said Sonny Styles is the number 1 ranked run defender in the nation. So I asked Sonny if that was true, and he's like, "Well, I don't pay attention to that stuff." But he didn't say no. The versatility thing, talking to Perry Eliano about how all offseason, him and Jim Knowles and Tim Walton trying to find ways to utilize Sonny Styles as that nickel and the different things they could do with him. What are they doing now differently than they would have done with Lathan Ransom there, knowing also that they still want to use him in different ways, and that's going to require them to put Malik Hartford or Kai Stokes or Jahad Carter back there in place of him. But he said that the fun thing about this group is they're all versatile enough that you can do anything with anybody. And they've been in the defense for 2 years. So when you ask them to do something, they know what you're talking about, and you don't have to show them over and over again. So the comfort level that Perry Eliano is coaching with now is up top compared to where it was a year ago, in a new defense with new players. And I said, I don't want you to I'm not asking you to throw your players under the bus last year, but the talent is much better this year than last year. And that includes Sonny Styles, who is just a 17-year-old high school senior.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it's the second year, I think that needs to get sort of reiterated, because it's the second year for Knowles, it's the second year for Tim Walton, it's the second year for Perry Eliano. The fact that the defensive backs are healthier than they were last year, especially the corner, that goes a long way towards explaining why we should be runners. However, the second year piece is a huge piece, because then you're going from having to explain to just having to tell. Just, here's what I need you to do on this play. Okay. What do you mean by that? Define our terms. Why am I doing that? What else is going on in the defense? You've had all those conversations. These guys were here last year. They had the one-on-one level class. Now you can just skip the stuff where you're raising your hand every 3 seconds and saying, what does that word mean? You can just do it. And that also, we go back to earlier in the show where we were talking about Kyle McCord and stuff slowing down for him. You don't have to sit there and think about, now what am I doing again in this? Or hey, now I'm at the adjuster safety spot instead of the bandit safety spot. Okay, what's my responsibility on this call? Like, you just know, because you've sat there and you've drilled it for 2 springs, 2 summers, 2 falls. You've practiced it, you've repped it, these guys have repped it in a bunch of different spots. The reason guys are comfortable in different spots is because they rep it in different spots. The wide receivers will work inside and outside. I mean, the wide receivers will work in all the different spots. The defensive backs, the safeties will work in different spots. Corners will work outside and inside. The whole point is you rep it, and then you just know it. Matt Jones talked about the fact that he had not played center in a couple of years, but he said a couple times a week he's taking a period or two and just snapping the ball. It's just a period or two of practice, but it's like every week he's working on that just a little bit, hey, you never know.
Yeah, he said he was comfortable at center and the snaps that he got. Kevin, are we live? Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we barely. We're live. First of all, Son of Sarek with a super chat. Donations for the Technology Improvement Fund. Thank you, Son of Sarek.
Yeah, thank you for that super chat. We will put that to good use immediately.
Yeah, need a better producer.
That's going to be a little bit more expensive, but
easy.
Well worth the cost. No, we're just messing around. What else you got?
Rusty Jesse, who will play spy next week against TTUN? Styles?
Who do you like spying J.J. McCarthy next week?
Who spies J.J. McCarthy? I think I kind of like Sonny Styles because you need someone who's shifty enough. Like Tommy Eichenberg is a great tackler, but I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is a make you miss in a phone booth kind of guy. I think I kind of want the super freaky athlete to be doing that. Now, you can't do that every single play, but I think that might be something. If I'm Jim Knowles, I'm looking at Sonny Styles and going, hey, make friends with number 9.
That was my first thought as well. Then I'm thinking, is it legal? Is it smart to take your safety out of the secondary and put him in a situation to spy? However, you can move guys around. You can do some different things. And because he is the kind of guy that you would want doing that. And he would probably be that guy as a nickel because he would be a Sam essentially against Michigan. But I also think Michigan's going to do some max protect things. So there won't even be that many necessarily receivers. They might only be running 3 receivers out there, in which case you've got plenty of defenders for that. Like you said, you can't do it every time, but I do think there are times where he is the perfect guy for that. And it's probably the times he's not blitzing.
And you probably are working Jordan Hancock in that mix a little bit as well, because Michigan is probably going to be in a bunch of 12 personnel where, okay, you've got 2 tight ends on the field, and then Jordan Hancock probably is not the best matchup on Colston Loveland. Maybe that's more of a Sonny Styles kind of matchup. So then you got Jordan Hancock, keeping an eye on J.J. McCarthy, and he's the same way. He's short, he's quick, he's shifty, he can, quick burst, all that kind of stuff. Like all the kind of stuff you need. That type of guy is the kind of person I think you need to have looking at McCarthy.
And I wonder if Steel Chambers is the passing linebacker, that he could also be doing some of that. But I don't know how much Steel Chambers is going to play over Cody Simon in that game. A lot of front end stuff. It might be 50-50 between those two to get those guys in there. Kevin.
Yeah. Next one here is Mark Fetters. I say we feed Marvin Harrison Jr. so he can win the Heisman.
Feed Marvin Harrison Jr. to win the Heisman. I think they did that last week, although Ryan Day completely denied that. But I do expect that to continue to happen this week and also to then be denied.
Well, I don't think you're specifically feeding him solely to win the Heisman. I think that's also the best way for this team to win football games. But the fact that it potentially helps with the Heisman doesn't certainly hurt. And if you have a wide receiver with Heisman, not that wide receiver has been a position of real weakness in the Ohio State recruiting realm recently, but again, it can't hurt if you have a hypothetical 5-star wide receiver, number 1 type player in the class who's currently committed to you, and signing day is still a month away. Like that, having Marvin Harrison win the Heisman the week before that, certainly would hurt.
Kevin.
Yeah. Next one here, Ryan Day's beard. Will we see the Devin Brown in the red zone package this week?
Will we see the Devin Brown in the red zone package this week? I don't know that you need to show it again, but also maybe you do so that he's not a rust-filled quarterback. Although, do you expect to see it against Michigan?
I think you want to put him out there, assuming he's healthy, because he, again, hurt himself during warm-ups last week. That's why you didn't see Devin Brown last week. I think you'll want to have him out there this week if he can go, even if it's not the reason, even if it's just you're up 28-3 or whatever, and you know give him a drive or two just to get him, because he has not played since Purdue, correct? I don't think.
Correct.
Yeah, he got hurt in Purdue, and then I don't think he's played since then. I think you want to put him out there because, number one, if you are planning on using him, then he's had a little, he's back up to game speed a little bit before going up to Michigan. And if you're not necessarily planning on using him, well, having him out there gives Michigan one more thing to think about. And the more stuff they show with Devin Brown, the more I will think they're not necessarily planning on leaning on that against Michigan.
So throwbacks to Devin Brown type of thing, Philly special, throwing it to Devin Brown. I totally expect that. He would have played earlier this past week if he wasn't banged up, so I expect him to play in this one. Kevin.
Peaceland, go Bucks. Who can you project, quote unquote, as of this minute, as missing the Michigan game, barring any disasters this Saturday? Who is out on 11/25?
Who can we project as missing the Michigan game at this moment? Lathan Ransom is out. Based on Ryan Day's non-comment comment, I will be surprised if Mike Hall plays, but he has not said Mike Hall is out. Obviously, we know Ryan Williams is out for the season. Anybody else at this point?
At this point of the new-ish injuries, those are the only ones that I would say. Ransom sounds like he's out. Mike Hall doesn't sound like he's not out, so therefore you're sort of assuming, reading between the lines, that he may miss as well. Other than that, and then guys who are season-ending injuries, that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, but there is still a week to go, as we know.
Always the optimist.
Yes, Kevin.
Odysseus, would you guys rather row the boat with Fleck or run with the chickens with Hairball?
Would you rather row the boat with PJ Fleck or run with the chickens with Jim Harbaugh? Tom, I don't know if you've ever grown up in a town where people had chickens that went in and out of their house. I have been in such towns.
You're from New Jersey, of course you did.
Is that a big thing in New Jersey? Chickens in the house? No. It's not big where I'm at from either. So next question.
Yeah, I don't know. The PJ Fleck versus Jim Harbaugh feels like two sides of the same coin, where it's like, well, these things are different, but these things are also kind of related, where it's like, oh, if you weren't a football coach, you would be like, I don't know, like a whitewater rafting instructor or something like that. Like, what would those guys be doing? Like, they're different, but also, like, I can't picture either of them like suit and tie 9-to-5 job on the 23rd floor at the Nationwide building downtown.
No, if they were Seinfeld characters, I think PJ Fleck would be the guy that Dan Cortez played, and then Jim Harbaugh, I don't know, Banya or the Maestro.
He could be the Maestro. Yeah, I don't know. I could.
Suit Nazi.
Yeah, well, Banya's an interesting one because he obviously has food opinions. Vis-a-vis soup being a meal, and a little bit of a sense of entitlement with Banya, perhaps unearned entitlement. Yeah, I could see that. There's also there's a little bit of not Kramer, but Kenny Kramer, the guy that Kramer was based on. There's a little bit of that. Like, you could see Jim Harbaugh doing the Michigan football reality tour on an old school bus. Like, I could see that.
I was thinking like a backlot studio tour of courtroom shows. Kevin?
Odysseus jumps in and says that Harbaugh is Joe Davola.
Crazy Joe Davola. I don't know that that's inaccurate. I don't know how accurate that is. Might be kind of...
Another one from Mozart's Ghost. Harbaugh was Elaine's boyfriend, the New Jersey Devil fan.
Putty. I was thinking,
yes.
Gotta support the team, Tom.
Gotta support the team. Definitely going to try and sell you the undercoating
Yes.
at the car dealership. Yeah, I could see that. And Putty I think Putty's more Fleck than Harbaugh.
Do you know who Bob Sacramento would be with the Counter Stallions? It's like a guy that you could go to for something.
Mm-hmm.
Won't be up and up on how he gets it to you.
Yeah, and you didn't really see Bob Sacramento. Did you ever see Bob Sacramento, or was it like Maris on Frasier, where you was just sort of a character who's referenced, but you never saw them? I don't know if you ever saw Bob Sacramento, but yeah, it was always, We've seen Connor Stallions, but he was also. You know what? You know who Connor Stallions is? A.G. Pennypacker, wealthy industrialist. Kramer's alter ego when he needed to go undercover. There you go.
Kevin?
Jordan Kapler bringing the question that Tony and I already answered on the Mark Rogers show. Would you rather fight 100 gopher-sized Kevins or one Kevin-sized gopher?
Just so everybody hears this. Would Tom rather fight 100 gopher-sized Kevins or one Kevin-sized gopher?
Okay, so how big is an actual gopher? It's like a groundhog size, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller than like the bat.
Yeah, a Kevin-sized gopher. I know a Kevin-sized gopher. Those are some big teeth, and that feels like get into you. And here's the other thing: when you get 100 little ones, you can punt some of those mothers real far. Think about how satisfying that would be.
Calgon, take me away.
Punting a gopher-sized Kevin like Jesse Murko. Boom, up in the air, drop him on the tube.
Like whacking day. Get your whacking stick out. Here come 100 gopher-sized Kevins, and you have like bullseyes on the wall, and it's just splatters all over the place. We need to explore this more because I did say 100 gopher-sized Kevins on the Mark Rogers show. Kevin said he would just take one Kevin-sized gopher because what was your reasoning, Kevin?
Well, first of all, the gopher-sized Kevins would all have parts of a champion. And on the other side, you're just fighting a big dumb animal, like Tony.
That's true. Little hearts of champions, kicking them right in their hearts of champions.
Can you imagine hitting them with an oar?
Yes.
Oh man, how? Now it's all I want to do.
I'm looking at the barrels over there and how you could just trap one with a barrel and then take like a baseball bat and just start hitting the barrel.
Like, did you ever, when you were a kid and you played kickball, really square one up? I mean, really square one up.
Right.
Just hit it so pure. Mm-hmm. You got 100 cracks at it, man. Like you're gonna hit one of them.
Was it 60 or 100?
It's 100.
It's 100.
And they're not going to take a turn coming in one at a time.
No, they're coming
this isn't an old kung fu movie.
They're coming in one at a time.
No, they're not coming in one at a time.
You're going to put them in the Monarch machine, and they're going to come flying at you, and you can just size them up and kick them, or baseball bat. All right, we'll take another question.
Yeah, well, I think we're kind of caught up now. Everybody's talking about what's going on with the Gophers.
What is going on with the Gophers? And then, John, when you get really good at it, they start running away from you. And then it becomes like the most dangerous game. Yeah. Now you're hunting.
That's I'm picturing Dan Carlin when Dan Carlin does his hardcore history shows, and then they rout it. And that's when whoever the Mongols have tricked whoever into chasing them, and then they're tired, and then the Mongol hordes come out, and then they go. Everyone kind of goes, "Oh crap!" and starts running, and that's when you get massacred. Yeah, that's when it gets really fun.
And now also the gopher-sized Kevin voice,
and
the screaming.
And you know what happens when they turn and start running? That's when it's time to kick some back.
Oh man! Yes, but also no, Kevin. We're not going to wrap up. Also, charts.
Man,
it's like see how close we. What is it? It doesn't count. Close doesn't count in the horseshoes, hand grenades, unless it's horseshoes, hand grenades, or charts at the gopher-sized Kevins.
Anyway, thanks to our sponsor, the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Thank you to the SPCA.
No Kevins were harmed in this show physically.
This one was.
One Kevin-sized Kevin was harmed. And we weren't even talking about Kevin-sized Kevins. We're talking about gopher-sized Kevins. Completely different. Tom, you got anything else before we go?
No, I think we're good. And wait, this is the last. It struck me coming in here tonight. This is the last midweek Wednesday night interview of the regular season. Every once in a while we'll get one of these during bowl season or whatever, but Michigan week next week, they do interviews on Tuesday at noon, and that's it. And you get Ryan Day and Jim Knowles and a couple players, and that's it. No more Wednesday nights. So every year I remember, I remember this feeling like, how did this season go by so fast? But here we are, last midweek interviews of the year.
Yeah, we'll have some bowl stuff, some playoff stuff, perhaps, and then it's like signing day stuff, and boy, then it all starts again. But want to thank you all. Thank you for putting up with us, putting up with Tom, putting up with Kevin. It is not easy. I share your thoughts and anguish. So, I do want to thank you for joining us. As always, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member if you have not yet, of course. Thumbs up on this one. Why wouldn't you? If you're watching on YouTube. And if you have not yet subscribed, that is a great way to support what we do. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.